Negligent hiring. Make certain you hire the right person. Every once in a while, if you get relaxed and don't pay attention, you'll have something happen where something slides in, and you may have some good people working with you, except for the fact that we are all human, and so every once in a while this concept of negligent hiring shows up. You hire somebody who you really should have done a better background check. You don't know what it's out there, so it just depends what it is. It's pretty rare to get a claim for negligent hiring. The plaintiff would have to show there's an existence of an employer-employee relationship that took place, and the employee's incompetence that they were hired to do the job should have been clear and obvious and to everybody in the process. There's an example of you hire somebody that has a bad driving record and you put them driving the school bus. No! You have to pay attention to that. What is an appropriate way to check the references on it? Well, first of all, you call the previous employer and the three different references they normally give, but you should never stop there. You should always go back to go and look at the different people that were in the process that they hired. The supervisor. Find out what their driving record is if the main part of the job is driving. If the main part of the job is collecting money, you should go check and make certain that they don't have any kind of criminal background record for stealing money from the previous employer. Those are common sense things, but sometimes everybody's afraid of, oh no, what'll happen? I'll be afraid. No, don't be afraid. Be afraid if you don't do your job well. It's called negligent hiring. Like I said, it's rare, except when it does happen, it can tend to be a big, giant black eye for the company, and people sometimes get hurt because of that. So if you have constructive knowledge of incompetence or inappropriateness, then all of a sudden that blame shifts from being that employee to the employee and the supervisor and the company. You should have known better, and it just matters when you get sued in court that they're after a large amount of money by some attorney. They may not have ethics, but they'll claim you don't because of the fact you didn't do your job. You had an act or omission, and that caused the plaintiff's injury, and it's your fault because of the fact that the person was there. Pay attention. This is the big area, and the cases in it are seldom, but when they happen, they really have a problem that really dives into the actual company itself and the running of the company. Reference checks. Employers can be liable for misrepresentation. Yeah, that person's a good employee. No, they weren't. Pull out the last evaluation on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the worst possible. They got a 5 3 years in a row. No, you can't say that. You can give a neutral evaluation. Well, the records are confidential. Personally, I am not a fan of HR departments giving reference checks other than neutral reference checks, because you can get sued by that potential employee. One time, we hired somebody and he was engaging in sex with students, and he put it out there that he was interested in such and such. Students responded, and all of a sudden they had three female students coming to me forward with this male teacher, and I called up his last place of employment, and the comment that he made, even though we were friends, work friends, he sat there and he says, I was bound by attorney-client privilege and I couldn't disclose the employment record. I said, you could have told me. He says, I couldn't do it. I said, dude, and that kind of damaged our friendship aspect of it. Reference checks. By the time you're all done, make certain you really do them. If all of a sudden a flag is going up, then check out the flag. One time I had an employee that had some issues and I terminated his employment. Somebody called me up, and I was bound by a gag order saying I can't talk about the employment. So the guy's talking, and he sits there and he says, what about this person? I says, I really can't talk about that. Well, but he seems like a really good applicant. I says, I can't talk about that. He says, but how come you can't talk about that? I says, are you listening to me? I cannot talk about that person. Huh? I got quiet. He got it finally. Sometimes pay attention to what you're doing. Make certain that you're following stuff, and pay attention to what is there and sometimes what is not there. Some states allow what's called compelled self-publication. They're forced to sit down and say, tell me why you were terminated. You must tell me or else. That's kind of a really tough thing to do, but anyhow, it gives the ex-employee a basis for claim for defamation. So be careful if somebody's asking for a reference about an employee. Make certain it's an accurate reference. Especially, what you say is, if they were a good employee, you can say the supervisor reported over here in evaluation. They were evaluated 3 years ago last time, and the time before that was 5 years. Both evaluations were clear. If you want to say that, you may not have to say that. If you're checking on references and you have questionable backgrounds, all of a sudden a flag should go up and you should be paying attention as to what is happening that you're looking at. So during the interview process, obtain releases from the applicants and allow an employer to check on previous employment. You can do that. Quite frankly, you don't have to do that. You can always check and make certain that's in your application automatically. So put a form in there in your application process. Look for it, make certain you see it in there. It says, by you filling out this application, we have a right to sit down and check your previous employment. That should be a signed statement as part of the application process. Request applicants get copies of the personnel files from previous employers. You want to have that. In my case, if they're going to be teaching, I have to get a teaching qualification, or I need to get their actual transcripts from previous colleges to be part of their personnel file. That's a requirement for the job. I tell them up front that's also on the application. Before positions offered to the candidate, don't award them the job. You award them the job pending a clear reference check. You qualify it. Watch what you say, because you can be construed to have made a verbal contractual commitment. So make certain there's educational records that are out there. Contact the institutions, verify their existence. There's a lot of people out there that fabricate different traits of their resume and their application. Double check everything. If you have one question on it and it's questionable, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 more, so follow up on that. If they're going to lie to you before they start working, I promise you they'll lie to you while they're working for you. So make certain you weed out that group out there, the ones that can't help themselves but lie about their background, because they'll be lying about whatever is in the workplace because they already have that nature. So be careful on that process. You don't want to have a reason to sit down and have something come back because of the fact they fabricated this over here and you made an assumption and that wasn't accurate or true. External disclosure from the applicant. Sometimes third parties are not required. Usually the 3 references you're always asking for. Is anybody ever going to put down a reference that, well, this person fired me, but I'm going to put them as a reference? No. They're going to put all favorable references down. Almost the typical application process where you ask for 3 references. Nobody's going to list all the different things as to why they shouldn't hire you. They'll be all friends of theirs. So make certain that common sense rules the day. You'll see a lot of aspects when you're out there when sourcing. Cast a wide net and monitor for bias out there. Beware of interview statements regarding the position that could mislead interviewees as well. Don't lead the candidate down a wrong path to sit down and have them inadvertently lie in the process. Monitor the demographics of your applicant pool. Make certain that you're recruiting from various sources. Train the interviewer and consider standardizing questions and evaluations. My opinion, every candidate should be asked exactly the same questions in the first round of interviews. Now, if they answer, that would give the people on the committee pause to go and ask additional questions based upon their answer, but the straightforward questions that should be asked should be uniform to all candidates unless there's an exception. Background checks, they really help an awful lot. Consider the reference provision of your policy. Make certain your application process is clear and gives you opportunity to have a broad range of reference checking. Know what you want. Screen for that. Check the background of all your candidates. Exceed the reference checks. Check additional aspects of it. Make sure you're covered in the application process. Run appropriate checks. Finance, if they're going to work in finance, you run a credit report. If they're going to be driving a vehicle on behalf of your organization, check the driving record. If it's children, criminal records, Check what you need to. Don't apologize for it. You have a right to it. You have a right to sit down and know who you're hiring, because this is actually a contractual engagement between you and this prospective person, and it should be clear and pristine as to who is what your expectations are, and what you're getting in the process from the employee. Make certain you're guilty of good hiring. Take care.